Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Classic City Talks with Classic City Locks. I'm Mike.
I'm Wes.
And here we are back at y'all with another video. It's week 7 of college football predictions. As y'all know, we didn't have a video last week because the studio was being renovated and just timing everything with that didn't work out. But we're back and we're ready to go at it again. So.
Yeah, so a little week 5 recap for you. Mike won by 1 pick. He was 10-9 while I was 9-10. So he moves on to 4-1 against me on the season. And he is 49-53 for his picks against the spread on the season, and I am 43-59, kind of the flip side of that. But all I gotta say is we're at the halfway point. There's half of the football season left, and I'm ready for a comeback.
All right.
I'm ready. I'm itching.
We'll see. But yeah, last week we didn't get picks out. I tweeted out, we didn't really coordinate. I tweeted out my picks on Twitter just because I figured I'd want something out there for y'all. And those went 13-7. But, you know, for fairness sake, we're not going to include them. But yeah, we're ready to go at each other again. Week 7.
Didn't give me the reminder to tweet my picks out. Otherwise,
that's another reason you should follow our Twitter.
Yeah.
If we can't get a video, we'll do it there.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, fresh slate, week 7. Not a ton of games, but we're ready to get into them.
Yeah.
First game, jumping straight in, we have Auburn. Unranked Auburn going to play number 9, Ole Miss. In Oxford, Ole Miss favored by 14.5 here. I'll just go ahead and say right here, you know, we don't like 14.5 a ton, but I'm not confident in Auburn. I'm going to take Ole Miss. I'm trusting that run game, the home environment. You know, they got into a bit of a sticky situation against Vanderbilt, and we were really worried about them. But then they just kicked it into gear, scored 21-0 in the third, and that run game is just elite. So I think that, you know, they're just way too good for Auburn, who's easily one of the worst teams in the SEC.
Did they end up covering last week?
They did, yeah.
They did?
They won 52-20.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It was a huge comeback.
That is a huge comeback. Yeah, I'm also going to take the Rebels here. I'm looking at it, and it's kind of a close one for me here. 14.5 is just...
We don't like that line.
That isn't a great one. I mean... you know what? I'm going to flip. I'm going to take Auburn. I'm going to start the week out strong with a dub. And,
it's not
they put up some fight against Georgia. I think that they did. Until it was 21-3 going into the fourth quarter. It was 21-3. At Georgia.
Scoreboard, dude. It doesn't matter.
Man, I'm going to stick with Auburn in this one. 14.5 is just a weird line to me. Let me see if it's shifted ever since we've gotten it. No, still 14.5. I'll ride with the Tigers in this one.
Money line, what would you do?
Money line,
Ole
Miss, take
of course.
Miss, but you give me that 15 that Ole Miss has got to win by.
Yeah, it's I think it's too low.
I think Auburn keeps it close in a SEC West kind of battle.
It's your funeral.
Next up, Iowa State going into Austin, Texas to take on the Longhorns, who are favored by 17.5 at home. This is one. You know, we are very high on Texas. I think we had them ranked even when the AP didn't for a while.
Definitely.
Texas is a great team. Quinn Ewers is back. I think
he's balling.
He is. I mean, this is a scary Texas team. I think they're probably going to win the Big 12. We'll get a good matchup next week with them. So all that being said, 17.5 is a lot of points. Iowa State just played Kansas State, correct? Or TCU? And kept it within 1.
It was Kansas State, and they covered. The line was...
It was 1.5.
They were plus 1.5.
And they covered.
Yeah.
So 17.5, I think this is going to be a 15-point game, not an 18-point game. I'm going to ride with Iowa State in this one.
All right. Yeah, no, you and I are on the same page. I'm also riding with Iowa State. If there's anything we've learned this season and the seasons prior... Iowa teams are gritty, and they will drag you down into the trenches in a defensive slugfest. I agree totally. I think 17.5 is a little too big here. I think that Texas will win, but I think it'll be like by 14. Maybe they'll make it really close, win like 14 and then a field goal, 17. But 17.5, too big. An Iowa State defense that is only allowing 13.7 points in the country. They're up there with Michigan, Georgia, and the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, yeah, give me them to keep it somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
Up next, we have number 19, Kansas, going into Norman to play unranked Oklahoma. Despite that, Oklahoma is favored by 7.5 here, so just over a touchdown. Kansas, tough loss last week, but one that unfortunately I saw coming. I don't think that their record. I think they're good, but their record wasn't there as much.
Well, you got to take the hurt quarterback too with a grain of
still,
salt there. If he
don't
stays
know.
healthy, that game is a different game.
And that's another thing that I'm factoring in here for this pick this week. Kansas's quarterback is out. Dylan Gabriel on the flip side is back for Oklahoma. And I think that Oklahoma, while they have been spiraling for the past couple weeks, they need a win. And I think they can win by 10-14 here at home, ready to get back on track against a wounded Kansas offense. So I will take Oklahoma minus 7.5 here.
Yeah, I had Kansas picked before, I knew Dylan Gabriel was starting. And this Kansas team, man, they're fighting for a whole lot. This is a record-breaking season for them in recent memory. And Oklahoma, it's also a record-breaking season for them in recent memory. But I think that Oklahoma, both teams are kind of in like wounded animal mode. But Oklahoma really needs a convincing win this weekend. I mean, people are already like jumping on Brent Venables saying like this is not the guy we want.
I think that's a bit premature, but
he's going to bring in a decent recruiting class consistently.
Yeah.
7.5 is not a line I would want, but I'm going to take Oklahoma in this one as well. I hope that they can win by 8, but I'm not very confident about this pick. Next up, we got Minnesota going into Illinois to take on the Fighting Illini. Minnesota is favored by 6.5, and I'm going to ride with Illinois in this one. I think 6.5 is too many. We had Minnesota lose a spread earlier in the year, 10.5 against Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just don't trust them. I think Illinois is a good team. Both teams have only one loss. And that's all I got to say about this one. I think that Illinois will lose the game, but not by 7 points.
Oh, man, this is definitely one of the toughest picks of the week. This is a matchup that last year Minnesota lost in another gritty defensive battle, like 14-6. And Illinois and Minnesota, in terms of points allowed per game, are the number 1 and number 2 defenses. So, yes, it's very tough here. I am going back and forth. I want to take Minnesota because they're coming off a bye week.
Oh.
They're rested up, things like that. And I do believe in them. I think that they had an off week against Purdue, got caught sleeping. Oh, that's a tough line. I'm going to ride with Minnesota here. They're ready to win. I think that with the bye week, they're going to shake off that loss. Comparable defenses. And, I think they're going to get it done with a touchdown in the end.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a fun matchup, I'll say that.
Yeah. Another Big Ten matchup.
Yeah, another Big Ten, top 10 matchup. We have number 10 Penn State going into Ann Arbor to play number 5 Michigan. Michigan is favored by 7.5 here. This is another tough one. Face value, I wanted to take Penn State, but I'm going to stick with Michigan to cover 7.5 here at home. They've been a little streaky. Last week they played Iowa, I believe, and won by 21, so just barely missed. But I do think that Michigan is good. J.J. McCarthy is settled in as their quarterback, and I think that the line is just a little too low. So I'm going to ride with them to win by 10-14.
Yeah, this Michigan team just coming off a win in Indiana where the score was not really indicative of the game. It was 10-10 going into the second half, and Michigan ended up pulling out like 31-10. But the keys to this game, in my opinion, are going to be, does Sean Clifford have to throw the ball a lot? If Penn State can establish their run game against Michigan's front line, I think that Penn State will have a very good chance at covering this. And J.J. McCarthy, I'm very interested to see how he throws against kind of some real competition in terms of defense. Michigan's played like nobody.
They played Maryland.
They put Maryland, Iowa, and Indiana.
Iowa's a real defense. Iowa's one of the best in the country.
I don't know. I'm still taking Michigan in this game, all that being said, but I think this game will be a lot closer than people predict and a little bit more entertaining. I could even see Penn State winning this one, which doesn't bode well for my pick, but I'm gonna stay with Michigan in this one.
The thing, my final parting thought is this is a Michigan team in Jim Harbaugh that have seen Sean Clifford how many times?
Yeah, that is true.
I think that they know what they're getting into with this one, that they're familiar. I think with Maryland And Iowa is always a defensive slugfest, but with Maryland, they kind of didn't really know what they were getting into.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but Penn State is much better than Maryland.
They are, but I think that they can win this game by 10 points.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But I could also see it shifting the other way and Penn State, eking out a very close one in Ann Arbor. But we'll see. I'm riding with Michigan still.
Yeah, same here.
We can move on.
All right, up next, easily our favorite and the best matchup of the week. Number 3, Alabama, going into Knoxville to take on number 6, Tennessee. Tennessee, the underdog here, so Alabama's favored by 7.5.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to unpack here. Is Tennessee legit? I think they are. I'm going to take Tennessee plus 7.5.
Okay.
Number one thing that I think is Bryce Young's injury. They said it's an AC joint sprain. He may come back. Saban didn't sound too... He did not want to talk about it last time at the press conference I saw. And I think even if he does play, that's an injury that's going to linger for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It might impact the way he throws. They might have to run the ball more. And I just don't think he's going to be in tip-top shape. And if Milroe plays, Tennessee is going to win. Tennessee's offense is putting up the most yards in the country. They just killed LSU by like 27.
Yeah.
So, I think that even if Alabama wins, they'll win by maybe 6 to 7, like a touchdown or 2 field goals.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's all going to come down to who's playing quarterback for Alabama. Yeah. You give me Bryce Young, I take Alabama easy in this. I think what's going to end up happening is Bryce Young plays like a little bit, like first half, and Alabama kind of struggles, and then they bring in Milroe or even the guy behind him. But, I think with Milroe, the thing we're not accounting for is Tennessee's defense is very good at stopping the run. So you have to be two-dimensional against them.
Yeah.
But Milroe, I believe, gives them kind of 3 dimensions because he is very good on his feet.
He is.
We saw him break away that run against Arkansas. I could see him doing that in this game. And Alabama, man, the power of the backup quarterback is with them.
It really is. Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with Bama in this one to cover 7.5. Yeah. I think that...
Wow, okay.
Like you said, Tennessee is legit. I think that they are, but also I think that this reminds me of kind of the Florida-Kentucky game when the whole nation jumped on the side of Florida after week 1 and they were like, Florida is it. Anthony Richardson is him. And like everybody picked, and their brother picked Florida, and then Kentucky just came out of there and actually won the game. And I think that everybody is leaning Tennessee in this one. So I'm going to go against the wave and pick Alabama because I don't like betting against the Crimson Tide.
All right.
So we move on to NC State-Syracuse, another good matchup. Finally getting conference play matchups for the most part here. Syracuse is actually favored by 3.5 at home despite playing ranked NC State. What do you got to say about this one?
I'm going to, face value. It's interesting because Syracuse is ranked here and we are kind of high on them. Like, we think they're good. At the end of the day, though, I don't know about them being favored by 3.5 here. I like NC State in this spot. We've said it all year. They've played together before through thick and thin, and they're rolling. They lost to Clemson by 10, but they kept that game competitive to the end.
Oh, yeah.
Playing at Clemson, and I think that it's a little disrespectful to have them as the underdog here when I think that their record is better. Who has Syracuse lost yet? Have they lost to anyone?
Yes, they have. I believe they're 5-1.
Let's pull up their loss real quick.
They lost to. Have they lost?
I don't think they have actually.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, they have not lost, but their wins, they beat UConn, they beat Virginia, they beat Wagner. They beat Purdue by 3. That's their best win, and they handled business with Louisville. I think that NC State has had harder games, and so while they have the loss, I'm going to stick with them to cover here on the road.
And I misspoke actually. Syracuse is ranked. They're 18.
Yeah, they're ranked. They're 18.
But I think this line should be more like 1.5.
Yeah.
I could see this game for NC State play out just like the Florida State game last week. So I'm going to also take NC State with the points. I kind of think Syracuse will win this one, but I think they'll win by like a field goal, and NC State will cover with a 3.5. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Yeah, that's another great conference matchup that I think is kind of being overshadowed by everything else this week. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Up next, we have number 8 Oklahoma State going on the road to play TCU. TCU having an amazing season. Oklahoma State also amazing, both undefeated. TCU here, they may be ranked lower, but they're favored by 3.5, same line. I started us off. What do you think about this one?
Oh, well, I had OK State penciled in here. TCU is a good team. I think that Oklahoma State is better, but for TCU getting to play at home field, I think is why we see them favored in this matchup by 3.5. 3.5 is a very, very bad line, but I think I'm actually going to switch this one to TCU. I think this is kind of a spread, just like the game we talked about before. I think should be lower than 3.5. But man, those Horned Frogs, I think, are going to show us something this week. I think Oklahoma State is going to be, they're still the favorite to win the Big 12, or maybe it's Texas, but one of the two of them.
They're a top 2, top 3.
And man, I just think the Big 12 is so competitive this year that it's anybody's conference. And I'm actually going to switch to TCU right now.
All right. Yeah, this is another one that I think is just probably my second favorite matchup of the week. TCU has really, hats off to them. Did not really expect. We thought they'd be good, but they're cruising. They're really taking care of business. But I don't know if I like the home. The question is, am I taking the home field advantage for TCU or the points with Oklahoma State? And I'm going to take the points with Oklahoma State.
Okay.
I've ridden with them pretty much all year. I'm impressed with their record. They beat Texas Tech, who is not ranked anymore, but is a good team by 10. Handled Arizona State, who upset Washington this week. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, whatever. And they took down Baylor by a good margin, which is admirable. Also not ranked anymore, but I just think that they have a good slew of wins, and I believe in that offense, so I'm going to stick with them and the points.
Okay.
Up next, we have Vanderbilt going in to play number 1 Georgia. Georgia favored by 38.5 here.
Vandy.
I'm gonna keep this real short. We're riding with Vandy here. Georgia, when the line is over 30 points, is 0-3, I think.
Yeah.
So we don't even need. It's just too high.
Vandy just played Ole Miss pretty close too. I know it was in Nashville, but
it's too high. Yeah.
Georgia wouldn't have covered this against Auburn last week.
Exactly. That's the first thing I thought of, and it was a commanding win.
Yeah.
But
I'm taking Vandy.
Yeah. Same here.
But James Madison graces our picks for the first time this season, going into Georgia Southern to take on the Eagles, and they are favored. James Madison is favored by 10.5 in this one. And I don't have a whole lot to say other than give me Georgia Southern. They have a great home field environment. James Madison is not going to know what hit him. I don't know if Georgia Southern will win, but win by 11 is too many points for me, so I'm going to trust the underdog in this one.
Yeah, what did you say about their home field advantage?
Yeah, their home field advantage is one of the biggest the biggest margins according to some study I was looking at. Yeah, it's normally 3 points is the average home field advantage, but theirs was 3.5 to 4. Let me look and see what it is actually.
Yeah, so you don't want to go on the road to play Georgia Southern.
4.9, I believe it is.
Oh man, that's crazy.
That is a lot.
This is another one that's kind of we don't really know a ton about these guys, so I would stay away from this one if I were y'all. Georgia Southern knocked off Nebraska. Very impressive win on the road. James Madison. When I look at their record, what's impressive to me is massacring Middle Tennessee, who killed Miami. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna also ride with Georgia Southern here in that home field environment. Give me the points to keep it somewhat respectable against James Madison. So give me the Eagles.
Clemson going into Florida State, favored by 4.5 in this one. The Tigers. Florida State just lost by 2 to NC State on the road. They're getting Clemson at home. I think the line has shifted to 3.5, I will say, but man, this Clemson team is starting to look like they're firing on all cylinders. They're tested. They had the NC State game. They had the tough game against Wake. I think that they're going to cover this one. DJ, I got to hand it to him, is playing a lot better than I thought he would. Mm-hmm. I thought they were going to switch to Cade by now, but it's looking like he's the guy. I think Clemson could easily win this by 8 or 9 points, so I'm going to go with the Tigers in this one.
I am also going to go with them. don't have much to add other than I am impressed with them. They've definitely come alive here. In NC State, they beat them by 10, and that's not a joke. NC State's a good team.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with them to win by at least a touchdown. I think with DJ coming alive and that defense is still very good. I don't really see any reason to doubt them winning by at least a score.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with Clemson as well. Up next, another great conference matchup. We have number 16 Mississippi State going to play number 22 Kentucky. Mississippi State favored by 7.5 here. Kentucky was the talk of the SEC East for a while, and they have just completely collapsed.
Yeah.
They lost to South Carolina, but they didn't have Will Levis. It looks like he'll be back this week.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I've seen, if you're looking at stats and modeling alone, almost every model I've seen likes Kentucky as the best underdog this week. At that line especially, I think that Will Levis will be back. He's practiced today. Obviously, this video will come out later and you'll know more. But I think that both of these teams are very good. Mississippi State is legit, but I don't think that we can discount Kentucky completely yet.
Yeah.
Without Will Levis, they're a whole different animal. We know this.
Right.
But if you're giving me the road environment, and I think that there's some stat with how many, whoever is the home team in this matchup has been winning recently. So if you're going to give me the points, 7.5 with Kentucky, with Levis, give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, this one for me is completely contingent on if Levis plays or not.
Yeah.
But and it's looking like he will. So watch out for that. The line is shifted down to like Kentucky +5. So that alone, I would take the Wildcats at 7.5, which we got here. Not a whole lot to add on to this one. I love Mississippi State, but 7.5 for the home points plus being the home
advantage.
team. Plus, I mean, last week was not indicative of like the true Kentucky if Levis plays.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna ride with the Wildcats in this one as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think just keep your eyes peeled for the injury report and go from there.
Yeah, and moving on to our last matchup, we got USC going in to take on Utah. Utah is favored by -3.5. So, this is a very interesting Pac-12 game, which has a lot of implications.
We've been talking about this since week 1. This is going to be a big matchup.
Will the USC bubble burst, or will Utah, lose another game? Two consecutive games, and this would be their third loss, and that would basically kind of derail their Pac-12 hopes.
Yeah, they need to win this game.
They
definitely.
do. They are definitely a wounded animal this week.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm going to go with Utah. Utah
Right.
favored by -3.5. Man.
What do they know?
What do they know?
What do they know?
USC, it'll be a very interesting game to me, but I don't know. They have some tests under their belt, the Trojans do, but I don't think they have a test quite like this one yet. And I don't think that USC is going to go undefeated this season, which is my thought process here. So you look at them, and who are they going to lose to? And
Oregon.
They could lose to Oregon.
Oregon or Utah.
It's Oregon or Utah.
UCLA.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
But so I'm going to ride with Utah in this one. I know you're probably going to pick against me, so we'll have to.
I think that I'm going to stick with Caleb Williams in that USC offense and the points. They haven't lost yet. Utah's lost 2 games. And I think that if you're giving me the points, the statistically somewhat better team, I can't really say no to that. I've believed in them just like Oklahoma State since the beginning of the year. They haven't really let me down yet. So I'm going to stick with USC to win in a close one. But if you're giving me the insurance of those points, I'm going to take that over the Utah home environment. A lot of the steam has been sucked out, or wind has been sucked out of Utah's sails. Playoff hopes are dead. They could win the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But,
they're fighting for their lives right now.
They are.
And USC, Utah has the advantage of going in and playing that close game at Florida earlier in the season. I know they lost it, but that at least puts a little bit of experience under your belt, whereas USC has the one game against
Oregon State.
Oregon State, yeah. Which,
I think that's a comparable... They won that one. I think that they're comparable to Florida in that Oregon is a scrappy... Oregon State's a scrappy Pac-12 team.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So
this will be a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a Pac-12 after dark game. What time you got on there for me?
8 p.m.
Yeah, okay. So
nice late night matchup to end the day. But yeah, that's definitely one of the best matchups. I'm going to stick with USC.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Our picks for week 7. I think many of you can predict what's going to happen this week in terms of our matchup. I think if you're betting the favorites, you would pick Mike. But if you're betting the underdog, let's take what kind of a point spread can I get on how many games off I can be? Can I get 1 game? No. I'm ready to beat him straight up this week.
I don't know about that. Hey, I'm riding with a couple underdogs too, so we'll see. We'll see. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Check our TikTok out and our Twitter if you haven't already. We post extra content there. And as always, just stay tuned for more future videos and drop a comment below if you think that we're totally off base. Thanks, guys.